Christian homeschool, when we teach history, we start with God. And when we start with God, we start with Him creating the world. That's the beginning of history, creation. And then we move through what God did and through the stories of the Bible with Noah and his story with the people of Israel. And we can supplement that with what was going on in the ancient world at that time around the world. We can talk about what was happening in other ancient civilizations at that time. And then we move on to talk about when in the perfect time, when in the fullness of time Christ came, and how significant the coming of Christ was in history, and how what God was doing at that time, and then how he began working with his people, now not only Jews but Gentiles. And we see what God was doing. We continue our study in history, exploring what was happening as the word went out in the world. And we can explore in any direction. We can explore the apostles that went to Asia and to India. We can explore the apostles that went to Africa, and we can study revivals in Egypt and Ethiopia. We can look at the Bible, the word spreading through Spain and into France, and the suffering of the French to establish the kingdom there in France. And we can study the Celts, and we can study how God rose up a people, the Irish people, to be leaders that would be needed at the fall of Rome to re-evangelize continental Europe. And then we can look at how throughout history, how the gospel was spreading to the ends of the earth, and the gates of hell was not prevailing against it. And how even just the discovery of the new world, we can see what was happening in the discovery of the new world. Now, there are many painful stories along the way. There were many Christians that made big mistakes. And we can look at that. And we can look at, just like Longfellow in his book, The Golden Thread, he explores the theme of what true godly Christianity looks like and what's the corrupted version of that. And we can look at that as we look at the explorers and how they decimated populations. But also we can look at God preparing the pilgrims to come with the right heart, a right attitude to bring the gospel to the new world. And we can see how God created the peoples in the new world. And we can continue to look and explore in every continent the story of God in those places. Every people group and country has a history, a Christian history that can be explored, where we can see what was happening with this people. Who are the people that bled and died to establish the kingdom of God in that area? We can look at the saints that went all the way to Alaska to establish the kingdom of God there. And we can look and see what God has been doing to accomplish his purposes on the earth. And so the center of our study of history is God himself and what he's doing. And there are some things that we may not know 100% for sure, but we can learn so much from the stories of the saints down through the ages. And so this is what Christian history looks like. And even forward thinking into when we explore geography and missiology, when we look at what does God want to do in the future, we can learn from the past and apply those things into our today and into the peoples of the earth today. What is happening with them, and what does God want to do today to reach the whole world for Christ?